Welcome to How to Live Slow, the podcast where we discuss slow living for the modern woman and help you design an intentionally slower family life. I'm Rachelle Glendon, your personal slow living coach and host of this podcast. I know all about busy, but I love living slow. Enjoy the show. Well, hello and welcome to the final episode before Christmas. I hope you're really well. So today's episode is, can you believe it? It's already been 3 months since the last one of these. It's my Spring Reflections Summer Intentions podcast episode. Realistically, I should have been a bit better at my planning and did this one last fortnight, but here we are. I just really wanted everybody to hear Rebecca's episode about what it's like to be diagnosed with ADHD as a 48-year-old woman with 3 teenagers. And that has been that was the previous episode. That was the one that would have that probably we should have done this episode first, but I really wanted to get that other one out. So yeah, and I did, and I'm so glad I did because it's been very helpful for a lot of you and it's been one of the most popular ones already. So that's really cool to hear. So yeah, as I did at the end of winter, at the start of spring, I did a podcast episode where I reflected on how living more seasonally this year has been working for me. And because I've merged from minimalism through to slow living, and now I'm approaching slow living with a much more seasonal approach. And in fact, my whole life has become much more focused on the cyclical nature of being online, having a business online. There's this talk about having to be consistent. So consistently putting out a podcast episode every week, doing a blog every week, sharing online, on social media every week, emailing your email subscribers every week, all of this. Be consistent, be consistent, be consistent. And what I realized is that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be constant. So I applied this approach of sometimes I want to be more visible and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I want to start new things and sometimes I want to finish them. And I really realized that I enjoy that cyclical nature of not always being at 100% productivity. And in fact, resting sometimes means that I get to be more than 100% productive in a way. So ever since winter, I went into, you might remember that the podcast went into hibernation mode. As of the start of winter, the podcast was weekly and I dropped it back to fortnightly because I was just starting to feel a little bit obligated by the weekly podcast episodes. And I didn't want to fall out of love with it. So I thought, I'm going to try scaling it back. And I then took this approach and I applied it to so many different parts of my life and realized that I came out of the end of winter feeling so much more rested, so much more vibrant and ready to approach the spring energy of starting new projects and being more out and about and being a bit more productive and a bit more social and all of those things. In spring, that was I felt that there was this upsurge of energy and it's carried on through summer. So I really want to kind of talk about all of this and what I've reflected on, how I've approached spring and what I'm planning and my intentions are for summer, even though we're already halfway through the first month, which is really hard to believe. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, seasonal living, if you think about the seasons, we start with winter, which is the resting period, which is all that fallow phase of the seasonal cycle. Then we come to spring, which is all about starting new things, fresh growth, emerging from rest, all of this sort of stuff. And then in summer, it's that high growth phase. It's that being visible. It's if you were thinking about it from a personal point of view, it's being more social. But yeah, that summer is that high, that lots of outdoor time, lots of growth and creativity. Things are being, coming out to fruition. Then autumn is the harvest kind of season where we finish everything off, we prepare for rest, we finish off our jobs and tasks. And, you've got the final harvest of the season, of the growing season, and we prepare to rest again in winter. And so there's that seasonal cycle, which we see in the trees and the plants and the animals, but we're also animals and we have a seasonal cycle as well, particularly women, but men too. But particularly women, if you want to look at the hormonal side of things, you can have a look at menstruation and then follicular phase, ovulation and luteal. They match the 4 seasons. But also your energetic cycle as well, just how you feel when it's winter versus how you feel when it's summer. That energy of wanting to start something fresh versus wanting to finish things off and declutter and, make the nest nice kind of vibes. I just love exploring this stuff. And even if you think, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's great. That's nice for some kinds of people who like to live attuned to nature and have the time and space to do that. But I would like to draw your attention to a couple of cycles that we have in the corporate world or the economic world. And one of them is the economic cycle in itself. So you have economic expansion, you have a peak, a contraction, and a trough. So that's, you see those 4 seasons within economic cycles as well. The product life cycle, if you've ever been involved in any kind of like product development, or if you've even worked in retail, you'll have like that introduction phase of a new product. Then it grows and then it reaches maturity and then it starts to decline. And that matches the seasons as well. Even I was speaking to my husband, he's a project, like he's a business owner, but kind of is a project manager in a way. And projects have a life cycle. And we all know that too. We have the idea, we initiate a project, we plan it, we execute it, and then we reflect and close. Obviously there's nitty gritty in there, but there's 4 kind of main parts to a project as well. So cycles exist everywhere. It's not just for certain kinds of people who want to live more aligned to nature. If we embrace this natural cycle and rhythm of life, we actually thrive so much more than trying to be at 100% all the time. If we can be kinder to ourselves and recognize that there are just going to be times in our lives and times in our day, times in our week even, or whether it's the month or whatever, recognizing that there's going to be times when we don't feel like it, when we feel like we need rest, and honoring that and doing something about it, then we thrive better. Because when we rest, when we feel like we need it, we have more energy when our energy, uplifts again. And I really, really experienced that when I spent a lot of time resting in winter. By spring, I was just ready and raring to go. Yeah, so in spring, I'm reflecting on spring because this was the time when we planned a camper van trip, which we did do. We hired a camper van in the spring school holidays and we drove up to Agnes Water, which was an amazing experience. We intended to buy a new warehouse, which we are still in the process of doing. We've moved out of our old warehouse and we are currently living in a warehouse, or also known as my home. We've got boxes and storage and things all through the garage, and we've got bits and pieces of various places' houses as well. People's houses, I should say. So hopefully we'll be in our new warehouse very, very soon. It's still currently being built. If you have been someone who has done any kind of building or renovation work this year, you'll know that building supplies there's a lot of delays in the building kind of world at the moment. So we have been impacted by that too. But however, that is all still in process, which it will be what it will be, and that's fine. Now, one of my other intentions was to blog weekly on slow living and motherhood. That has not happened because during this time, I knew that I felt the call to do more writing, and I intended to do a weekly blog. But what I ended up doing is started writing a book, which is very exciting, and I can't wait to share a bit more with you. I mean, if you've been following along, you'll probably already know. If you're on my Facebook page, you'll know about the book. I'm calling it Martyr to Matriarch. I got the trademark for that name through about a month ago, which is very exciting. But now I'm not really sure if I want to write that book or if I want to write a book about slow living or whether it ends up being both or whether there's 2 books to happen. But anyway, the writing has happened, just not in the format that I thought it would. The other thing that I intended to do was to bring a brand new take on my program, Martyr to Matriarch. I renamed it. It's now called The Matriarch Way. It's now a month long. You've now got options to upgrade into one-on-one capacity as well. And I've given it a full facelift. So it's actually 4 individual workshops and then 4 Q&A, like group coaching kind of sessions, with daily prompts that help you to deepen your work and explore the concepts within the Matriarch Way. And Matriarch Way is really about slow living and self-leadership for gentle mothers or gentle parents. So if you want to find out more about that, you can go to my website. I'll be running that program as it is. Actually, it will get another little facelift. I'll be running it again in February, which I can't wait for. So if you're interested in slow living and self-leadership, and you identify as being the flexible parent or a gentle parent, then it's going to be really good for you. And then we also intended to do a lot more family rituals, outdoor focused stuff, which we have done. We've done a lot of evening trips to South Bank for a swim after school, which has been really fun. The kids absolutely love that. Yeah, we go for a swim, then we get some dinner, and I pack the kids' pajamas, so they put their pajamas on, and we drive home. And by the time we get home, they're asleep, so I can just put them straight to bed. It's amazing. Highly recommend that as an alternative to the bedtime routine, like once a week or once a fortnight. Yeah, I mean, amazing. So now we're heading into summer. So that's spring. Spring is all about these starting new things, and I definitely have embraced that energy, which has been great. We also did a lot of gardening. We planted sunflowers and tomatoes and strawberries and zucchini and some other bits and pieces and rosemary. And it has been so cool. The kids particularly loved the sunflowers and the tomatoes, and the strawberries actually. Watching them grow and ripen and flower and blossom and bloom has been really cool. So I'm really excited to do that even more next winter, like late winter, early spring, so that we can have it was really cool. So I'm excited to have a bigger veggie patch next year, a proper veggie patch. We just did it in pots just as an experiment, and it was really, the kids loved it. So, and I shared a lot of that on Instagram, and everybody loved it. Like, I loved getting everyone, like seeing everyone loving my sunflowers, particularly. That was really fun. Yeah, so summer. Summer is the energy of being creative, a big growth phase, being more social, being more visible, being more out there, out and about. It's like got a real connection energy. Couple of things on here. So I'll tell you, I've got so much to say, and I'm really excited. There's a lot happening behind the scenes in How to Live Slow, and I'm committed to walking my talk when it comes to slow living and the podcast and my business, in that I want to grow this platform, but I'm never going to do it in a way that stretches my capacity to the point where I can't continue to live a slower life. Meaning that I do walk my talk. Like, I have put in place some pretty strong boundaries around the times that I'm available for work. I've got Lewis at home for one more year next year, and then he's off to school. So I'm just going to spend this next 12 months growing my business slowly and surely, so that when the kids are at school, I've got something to really sink my teeth into. Like, Max is at school at the moment, but I'll still have Lewis. He goes to preschool 2 days a week. And so I work those 2 days. One of those days I kind of help my husband in his business majority of the time. One day I have to work on How to Live Slow. And then I might work 1 or 2 evenings, depending on if I'm running a program or not. What I've realized is I can work one-on-one with individual clients using the voice messaging platform called Voxer, and we do that where we connect in between 1 and 3 times a day on weekdays, and that's working really, really well. It's convenient for me and my clients because they're mums as well. And finding time to do, like, say, a 6-session coaching program where you do a 1-hour Zoom every fortnight for 3 months is actually really hard. Or it's particularly when you've got younger kids, and the idea of finding, stepping away and using your brain in a different capacity for a whole hour can sometimes be an overwhelming block that means you don't do it. Whereas with Voxer, I can message you when I have 5 minutes in the morning, and then you can reply when you get 5 minutes. You can think about something, and I can message you a prompt, and you can think about it and mull it over for the day, and then reply later when you've managed to catch your own thoughts and make some notes or whatever it is. So you're not always having, I'm not someone who can necessarily think great on the spot, bang, I've got an answer. Sometimes it's nice to step away when you respond to me, and I can think about it, and I can come up with the best questions and the best course of action. So it works really well. So I do that outside of those couple of days a week where I work at my desk. So I have a very limited amount and capacity for work, and I'm very committed to maintaining my boundaries on that so that I can also be a great mum and show up as a gentle, loving mum, and find time for socializing, and find time for my husband, and find time for the kids, and find time for all the managing the household and all of that as well. There's a lot on my plate. And so I'm really committed to maintaining my business in a way that makes it feel like it's so nourishing to me. Like, I love How to Live Slow so much, and I would hate to overcommit to the point where I just become like I hate it and I don't want to do it because I really feel that I know the people who connect here with me, my listeners, really love and value the support that's offered through my guests and the ideas that we share here on the podcast each fortnight. So on that, this is exciting. I know that people love the podcast because I've seen the growth in the numbers, the listeners. I think we're up to 20,000 downloads, which is not massive numbers by any stretch, but that's still fantastic. I'm really, really proud of that. And it's a very small niche if you think about it. Slow living, self-leadership, matrescence, motherhood for gentle parents who work from home or stay at home. I mean, there's, that's a lot. That's a pretty small niche, really. The exciting part about it is the podcast has been nominated as a finalist in the Beautiful You Coaching Academy Awards, and I am among some amazing other podcasts, but How to Live Slow is officially a finalist in an awards program. Yeah, so Julie Parker I trained with Julie as a life coach in her Beautiful You Coaching Academy way back before I had the kids in 2014. So seven and a half years ago. And so this is a full circle moment for me. The podcast is officially a finalist in their awards. So we'll find out next March, I think it is March or April, who the winners are. And I've already received a certificate and a medal. So I feel like a winner even if I don't win. And to be honest, the podcasts that are also in the running are just so outstanding. And there are some amazing people creating some really incredible things, and what an honor. And I really want to thank all of you, my listeners, and also my guests for being so incredible and so supportive. Words can't really explain just how much I've gotten out of creating this podcast and how amazing it has been to have such rich, deep conversations with my incredible guests. And I'm going to keep throwing all the special words at you. Beautiful, amazing, incredible, all of those, because it is a real moment for me. So that's really cool. My summer intentions, having said that, I really invite you as well to think about how your spring went and how you're feeling about summer and what your intentions are. I know at this time of year, everyone's like, right, we're going to get through Christmas and then we're going to have that weird bit in between Christmas and New Year, and then bang, New Year's here. We've got to go back to work and get into it. And January is always a bit of a weird month where nothing really happens and you feel like you should have this go energy, but you just don't until February. So really think about, okay, well, what's the intention? Knowing that might be how you are, what do you want to create? How do you want to show up for the school holidays if you have them? What might you achieve instead of thinking about the whole of 2022? Because reminding you as well, this time last year, we were all so done with 2020 and so excited for a brand new decade and a brand new year in 2021. I think we set ourselves up for a bit of a disappointment because 2021 I find to have been harder in a lot of ways than the previous year in terms of the pandemic, because in 2020 it felt like there was a lot of coming together, particularly here in Australia. We were all kind of, we weren't as divided. There was, a bit more like it was all new. It was all like, okay, let's do this together. We can beat this thing together. And then 2021, it just felt like everything became more divided and more political and more like everybody just has reached a limit, I think. So I really want to be mindful to think about 2022 as this amazing potential new year, but also maybe just think about summer. What can you achieve in the next couple of months? And not thinking about things like, that are going to be affected by other restrictions or things coming back into play, but like your own, what do you want? Who do you want to become? Like, how do you want to show up regardless of all of that? So for me, summer is some more slow and delicious afternoon catch-ups. Like, I love a beautiful long afternoon at the park with a picnic or a barbecue and a soccer ball or a cricket ball or something. And that's what I want more of. That's what I want the kids to be out of doors of an afternoon when it's starting, the sun, those late afternoon hours, just soaking up that afternoon energy and that real, it's like you're out, you're being social, but it's not depleting. Even if you are an introvert, it doesn't feel like it's depleting you. It feels like it's nourishing you, and you get home and you're like, oh, that was so good. That was just what I needed. That's what I want more of. Some, beautiful afternoon catch up with friends kind of thing. I'm going to focus on writing my book because I can do that in between the pockets of time where maybe Lewis is having a nap or, whatever. I don't know. We're sitting, the kids are in the pool, and I can voice note myself some things, which is often how I do writing, voice notes. I'm really keen, desperate, I should say, to visit my family across the border. The Queensland border has been closed for 5 months. I think it opened yesterday after 5 months of being closed. And my parents are across the border. Rolly's mum is across the border. My brother's across the border. It's sort of like we didn't even plan to go there for Christmas, even though they had announced about a month ago that the border would probably be open in time for Christmas. We just didn't think we could manage the what happens if they decide to close it kind of thing. So we're going to go down after Christmas and visit everybody. We're going to do a road trip and visit as many people as we can in New South Wales, and that's going to be our January. At some point, once they've figured out whether we need to be tested, whether we need boosters and all of the things, because the rules are just changing constantly. So once we've got a bit clearer about what we can do and how, see, the trouble is getting back into the state, if they close the borders, we may struggle a little bit, and we really can't do that. Like, we'd have to quickly get across the border. My husband particularly, he can't be in lockdown, I'm sure, as you know, for 2 weeks when we have a business to run. So that has been a big factor of why we haven't sort of, risked it or thought maybe we'll go and hopefully we don't get into a hotspot and we can just come back and self-isolate at home. We just haven't been able to do that. But I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody and reconnecting, because I'm not someone who's really great at phone calls and phone chats. I just forget, or I just get in my zone, or, to be honest, I don't know if you're like this, but my kids, when I'm on the phone, they just turn weird. So I can't be on the phone too often because it stresses me out that they'll like jump up and hit the phone, or they'll shout and scream, or they'll fight, or they'll like eat all the ice creams because I'm not looking, kind of thing. I don't know. I can't. The thought of being on the phone just kind of stresses me out. So I kind of block it out as an option. I know it's a bit of an excuse, I guess, but I'm much more of a face-to-face person. Like, I'm not great at keeping in contact on the phone, but when I'm with you, I'm with you. And that's, part of my practice with slow living is to be as present as I can. And yeah. So that's our travel plans for summer, is to just see our families if we can. The other thing that's very exciting is that my Pinterest account has kind of exploded. And Pinterest is really, the word, predicting that next year is going to be a lot of focus on seasonal living, which is cool. So I'm going to be showing up there a lot more. I've signed up for a course thing that's going to teach me about Pinterest and how to make the most of it and how to get the traffic flow, because honestly, like, my friend Simone helps me with my Pinterest account at the moment, and it is the highest source of traffic for the podcast and my website. So I've got more followers on Pinterest than I do on Instagram and Facebook combined, and I get a lot more traction over there. And I don't even really do anything on it. She just posts my podcast clips for me and things like that. And so I'm like, okay, well, that's obviously where people are looking for slow living stuff more. I might focus on there and see what I can do to increase that, because, I love Pinterest. It's really good. So if you are an online business owner, it might be particularly worthwhile in you exploring that for yourself as well. But that's what I'll be doing, and I'll report back. So the other thing is, okay, so this is exciting. The podcast is going to be weekly as of January again, which I've got the next 4 episodes, so that it'll be fortnightly until the next one. And then from the next one on, it's going to be weekly. The next 4, I have guests, and they are all, well, a couple of them are authors with published books. That's exciting. So this is the next 4. It's called I can't remember what I called the series, but basically each of the episodes is going to be exploring, like we all like to set New Year's resolutions, right? So the next 4 episodes of the podcast are going to be these different kind of lifestyle choices that you might like to make instead of thinking about New Year's resolutions of like losing weight or exercising more or whatever, the standard ones are. These are lifestyle choices that you might be interested in exploring over the longer term. So there's working from home, so starting your own business. And my friend Stacey is a excellent. We have a really cool chat about what it looks like and how to go about it. Then I've got my friend Lana, who also is a slow living, she's a psychologist. She's got a book and she's going to be talking about living more values led and living a slower life, which is really cool. Then I have Eva, who is going to be talking with us, I should say, about homeschooling, which is something that I've definitely explored as an option. And I know that hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people are looking at that as an option for the future. And I know that because I've joined some Facebook groups, and the growth in the last 6 months of those groups has been phenomenal, but particularly in the last couple of months. So I wouldn't be surprised if homeschooling becomes a lot more mainstream over the next couple of years. And so Eva has 6 kids, and she has 6 kids, and she has been homeschooling them all. They've never been to regular school. So she is an amazing resource for that, and it's a really great chat. And then I also have my friend Suzanne, who's written a book about her dramatic weight loss, and it's a great chat. I can't stress enough her book. I read it in a day. It's not very often that you read books in a day. She wrote a memoir about what her journey was like, about how we get into these weird dynamics of needing to be on the diet treadmill, So that's a really good one. It's very aligned. I think you'll really love it. So that's what's coming up. And then after that, I'm going to do a lot more solo episodes, which I don't know. Maybe, do you like listening to my voice? Let me know if that's something that you're into. But yeah, I really want to document a little bit more of my seasonal approach to life, what we're doing, what we're up to. As much as I love talking about the motherhood experience, I feel like I've covered it in every possible aspect as I can. And I personally am moving more towards the personal growth side of slow living. So I love the motherhood part of slow living, and I really am passionate about how important it is to slow down in the early years of motherhood. And now I'm exploring self-leadership, which feels like the next phase. So I've been in the baby bubble for the last 6 years, and now I'm kind of emerging from that. I've got another year with kids at home, or a kid at home, and then I'm going to be like really ready to sink my teeth into the next level. And I feel like I'm ready to claim back a little bit more of my womanhood, so I can be mum, but I can be other things as well. I feel like I've gone really deeply into motherhood, and now I'm ready to start to step back a little bit and watch the kids grow to their own people. They're not babies anymore, and I'm feeling that really strongly, which is kind of funny because it's summer and that's that growth and creativity and that socializing. Like, I'm feeling really called to discover who I am again, and that feels really exciting, actually. So yeah, that's the summer side of things. So what else? I've got some books to be reading. Now I don't know if anyone else follows the holistic psychologist, Nicole LePera. I have no idea how to pronounce her name. Sorry, Nicole. She wrote another book called How to Do the Work, which is about recognizing your patterns, healing your past, and creating yourself. And this just feels like an incredibly perfect book for me to read throughout summer as I go on a bit of an internal growth journey. I'm really, really ready for it. I'm really ready to play a much bigger game. And so I'm going to do this book and go through that. I'm currently reading The Dictionary of Lost Words, which is an excellent book. It's by Pip Williams, and it is a book based on, it's true. The people in it are real characters, but it's a fiction, if that makes sense. I really love that style of writing. The Hamnet was another book that I read that was about Shakespeare, and it's a fiction, but it's about Shakespeare. It's really good. So this Dictionary of Lost Words you've probably seen it. It's one of the more popular books that's going around, and I kind of just didn't think about it, and someone mentioned it to me often you go, oh, popular books, they're probably just faffy. But someone said to me, it's actually about the writing, the story of the writing of the Oxford Dictionary. And it's the perspective of the daughter of one of the guys who worked on it. And she is obsessed with words. And she discovers that there's a lot of words not being included in the dictionary that describe women's experiences. Or there'll be words with, words often have multiple meanings, but there'll be words that have been included in the dictionary, but the meaning that comes from the woman's experience, because it hasn't been written down in literature, isn't included in the dictionary. So it's about that. I'm halfway through it, and it's really, really good. And the Christmas movie, A Boy Called Christmas, that is actually based on a book written by Matt Haig, who is one of my new favourite authors. He wrote A Boy Called Christmas. He also wrote The Midnight Library. He wrote a couple of other books, things like How to Stay Alive, How to Stop Time. And he's an excellent man. He was suicidal when he was younger, and now he's like an extremely prolific writer. Anyway, so the movie A Boy Called Christmas is actually it's a beautiful kids' Christmas movie, but it's not like a happy ever after kind of ending. It's more gritty than that. I found that the ending is the end result or the lesson that you learn is that parts of life are really hard. There are bad things that happen to you, but you can still find the beautiful side of life. You can still find ways to enjoy it and love it. And that is why I loved this movie so much, because it wasn't just all fluffy and woo and yay, the girl gets the guy kind of ending. So also on Audible, I'm about to start listening to the Will Smith book, Will. And if you don't know that one, you probably heard that Will Smith has a book. It's called Will. But you might not know that Mark Manson, who wrote This Subtle Art of Not Giving a is the guy who helped him write it. So this guy, Mark Manson, who wrote that book, spent quite a lot of time with him, and they interviewing him and asking him questions, and he kind of wrote the book alongside Will, which is really cool. So I'm excited to dive into that one because I really like Mark Manson. I'm actually subscribed to I pay to be in his private blog feed because his writing is incredible. He's a really, as a wishful author, one day I would love to have books, and as a blogger, I find his writing just so good, so really textured. So I'm excited to listen to that more, not just because it's Will Smith, but also because Mark Manson helped him write it. Okay, so that is that. Now, what else do I need to tell you before I go? This is a really long podcast, and I appreciate if you have listened all the way to here. Probably my most raw and honest and open podcast. I'm just waffling on. I've got notes here in front of me and I'm telling you all the things and chatting about all the things, and I hope that it's been inspiring and just gotten you to think a little bit more about how to live life differently, how to, if you want to know more about living more seasonally and approaching life and your energy and your capacity from a way that's it's not just all about getting stuff done and ticking off lists and being a productive worker. It's got to do with putting life first in the work-life balance, making it life-work balance, I guess. That's what slow living really is all about. So I'm excited to see what the following year, the next year, has in store. If you like this episode, come and join my mailing list. You can join my mailing list by going to howtoliveslow.com and sign up to subscribe there. Excitingly, I have a new couple of projects coming along. Talking about the seasonal way of life, I'm starting up, and it won't be until autumn, but I'm bringing out Slow and Seasonal, which will be kind of like a 3-monthly rolling membership. So each season you can sign up for a season pass, and we will do planning sessions together that kind of bring in the seasonal aspect of where we're at and what we should be focusing on and why, if we're not feeling the energy that we're supposed to be feeling at that particular season or that, is calling us, let's look at that. And it's going to be slow and delicious. It's going to bring in my 4 pillars of slow living, which are, all about doing less and boundaries and all of that stuff. So that's going to be fun. So you'll hear a lot more about that. Excitingly, in January and February, I'm going to be hosting something I'm calling the Slow Summer Social, which will just be a series of Zoom chats, kind of like group coaching calls, where we're going to talk about a different topic. I think there's 5 of them. It's going to be about why we get so busy, the mental load, our desires for a slower life. We're going to do a slow living audit. There's going to be lots of fun things going on there, and it's really affordable. I'm going to make it like $50 or something for the whole lot. I just really want to connect with all of you, and the $50 will just cover like my email list subscribing thing that I've got to pay for. It'll help me cover the cost of the podcast, but most importantly, I'll get to see some of you in person, well, not in person, but on video, and we can chat and get to know each other a bit more, because I'm really keen to do that. I love chatting to you on Instagram messages, but I'd love to see your beautiful faces as well. So if that's interesting to you, the email for that will be going out pretty soon. So make sure you're subscribed. It's, like I said, it's my website, www.howtoliveslow.com. If you need that detail, it will be in the show notes, of course. But apart from that, have an amazing Christmas and New Year's. Make sure you really make the most of those weird days between Christmas and New Year's that it's only 6 days or something, but it seems like it goes for about 3 weeks. It's just, if you can, nap as much as you can, read, do puzzles, eat 3 lunches, and have dessert for dinner. Just really, really enjoy it. Slow down and be present as much as you can. And if you can't, reach out and I'm more than happy to support you. I'm always available if you've got any questions or anything like that. All right, if you made it this far, amazing. Thank you so much for being such an incredible human. Take care, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye. That's it for another episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you'd like to connect further, the show notes from today's episode, including all the social links and free resources, are over on my website, howtoliveslow.com/podcast. Have a beautiful week ahead, and I'll speak with you again soon.